Okay, I've never done a video on politicians, and quite frankly, sovereign citizens bore the hell out of me. I think they probably bore you as well. How many smashed windows do we need to look at? So let's take a look at a politician who I really detest. And I detest most politicians, not just because they're Democrats or Republicans. I base it on whether or not they are a parasite, a scum-sucking clown who lies to people just to get votes, or someone that's actually an effective leader who is trying to make a difference.
Tom, 3 things to remember when you get older. Never pass up a bathroom. Never waste a hard-on, and never trust a fart.
Taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help them cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from
Swalwell, of course, denies everything it sounds like, but I'm not really sure because he's kind of issued an apology, non-apology about his mistakes. Now, a mistake, since he is an attorney, he didn't go to a very good law school. He's one of these kind of guys that, probably, I mean, he personifies in my book absolute arrogance, and it's not deserved. A mistake would be I'm backing out on my driveway and I didn't see that the trash can was closer to my car than I thought, and I banged into it. Get out. I'm like, ugh, sorry. No real intent there. It was an accident. It was a mistake in what I saw and how I perceived it. If you go to a hotel room and you're getting it on with a woman that's not your wife, a lot has to happen to get to that point, okay? You just don't magically have sex with somebody. You just don't press a button. Your bodies just don't naturally pull each other together like magnets. There is time to reflect on it, time to think about it, time to wonder about your wife and kids at home and not be caught. Look at his pontificating about his morality. This is the kind of stuff that just always comes back to haunt somebody. But hey, these are his words.
Brett Kavanaugh's sake, if he is innocent, I hope tomorrow he opens his statement and says, you know what? Bring in all the victims.
It's really focus on like serious, violent, sexual. Those 3. If you like throw the book at those 3.
Wear masks in our community. You're terrorizing women. Real men don't terrorize women.
Real men don't terrorize women. And when you wear a mask, you're terrorizing a woman. I guess when I'm in court and they required me to wear masks, I terrorized the women there. Not a single woman told me that I terrorized any of them. Okay. Again, this just sounds like soundbite bullshit.
There's one group who has always known the danger of Donald Trump, and that's women. As somebody who has spent my time in Congress working to stand up for the rights of victims, about sexual assault victims who deserve justice.
He's got some lawyers out there that are sending out cease and desist letters. Maybe I'll get one. Fuck you. That's my response to you. I will anti-slap your ass so fucking fast. So there is the moral pontification. He is the epitome of virtue. Marcus Aurelius, when he wrote the Meditations, he didn't expect people to read them. He was the most powerful man in the world, but he tried to be the most humble. He was always extolling virtue. That's not what this is. This is him trying to sound and look good for a particular situation, which means that I always get suspicious of the people who claim that they are so good at these kinds of things. Anyway, and I won't even tell you the defenses as an expert in this area of law that I will have waiting for you. Oh my goodness, and the cost. I already know the lawyers I'm going to call to help nail you for legal fees. Just wiped out a $25 million defamation claim by a politician. Yeah, that's not going to work on me. I'm commenting on a public issue, and I'm going off of the data that's publicly available. I'm using the information that is available, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt as to whether or not he's guilty or civilly liable for anything, because we don't have all the information. And I'm not saying that he's guilty or civilly liable for anything, because quite frankly, we just have some sound bites, and trials are not about sound bites. What makes him detestable first is that he morally pontificates. I do not like that. If you're a politician, then just like a rat and a cockroach, know what you are and act within those boundaries, and we'll get along fine. But don't act like you're a morally virtuous rat. Now let's talk about married men. This is, from what I read, his second marriage. He claims that he is a Protestant. I didn't know what that was until maybe about a year or more ago. I didn't know what it meant to be a Protestant. I'm not, I'm a Catholic. And there's a lot of denominations of Protestants, and they have their own view of things that came about around 600 years ago, 500 years ago, whatever it is. It's not the teachings of the Catholic Church. I feel sorry for his wife, and I feel sorry for his children, because undoubtedly this is being splashed across the paper. Now, for a guy who claims to be Protestant, I would have expected that he would read the Bible and understand its warnings about doing this kind of stuff. If you want to talk about virtue, then go to the book that was written 2,000 years ago that absolutely lays out the standards of conduct. If you obey those standards of conduct, you do not get in trouble. Now, for those of you so inclined, I'll have them at the very back. That way, if you don't want to read it, you don't want to feel like you're being indoctrinated, fine. However, let me just tell you, what my father said is so true. Never dip your pen in the company inkwell. He says, but it's more than that. He said to me, don't just go by looks when you're selecting a woman. I mean, guys are very simple. Women have a whole different set of criteria when it comes to picking and deciding whether or not they want a man. Men are very logical. We're very simple. We start with looks and we work from there. My dad was explaining to me, there are certain moves that you can do as a man that will destroy your life. One of them is being married and cheating on your wife. He says, maybe you get away with it for a few times, but there's things that this does. First of all, it dissolves the bond of trust that your wife's going to have for you if she ever finds out. You might be divorced on the very first instance. Maybe she forgives you, but she is never going to really get over that. And you've hurt her. You've hurt her soul, basically. You know, he didn't use those exact words, but he talked about how it would be, you know, a monumental thing that wives don't forget. And then you may grow up without having your children, know your children, because you're going to be sucked into the legal system. And man, my dad was exactly right about that. I've watched the legal system take men who are solid workers and earners and turn them into ATM machines and fathers that have no connection with their kids because the system is aligned against them. The wife gets the house, the wife gets half the money, half of his net. The children, they usually poison the children against the dad. They blame him for everything. Then she has a live-in boyfriend, the whole story, and then the whole family gets destroyed. So it's not family law, it's destroy the family law. So my dad said, never, ever cheat on your wife. Well, 38 years later, I'm very happy to say that I still haven't, and I'll never do it. You just can't accidentally have sex with another woman, okay? There's a lot of steps in there. So when I looked at Swalwell's claim of making mistakes, whatever that was, and that he was going to challenge the false, serious allegations against him. So it's one of these mixed, I did it, I didn't do it, but I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I'm not going to tell you what I didn't do. You'll just have to figure it out, okay? So those famous non-apologies, I regret that you feel this way. On the other hand, I understand why he's kind of stuck, because civilly liable is a very low standard, not like criminal, 50.1. And of course, they're trotting out all these women now. I'm very suspicious of that. I think, and believe me, I am no Swalwell fan, but I think because he was number 3 in the vote tallies here in California, and only the top 2 get elected as governor, and both of them Republicans right now, I think they were forcing him out so that the guy that was in 4th position, a Democrat, would conceivably get all of Swalwell's votes, which would put him into 1st position, and then force a runoff between a Democrat and a Republican. I sense that. And when they asked Nancy Pelosi if she knew anything about it, she said she did not know anything about Swalwell and what happened. You know, a bottom line is that I think that's what happened to him. He's always been a loyalist. He always advocates the party line, and the party, showing that it can be very vicious when it needs to look out for itself, squashed him. So he's lost his job, it looks like, as a congressman. He's out as a governor. He still has a law license, although I don't know what kind of law he's going to practice. I certainly hope he doesn't practice family law. My dad gave me that advice, and it was golden advice. And the Bible talks about how adultery will destroy a man and consume him, and his life will be wrecked. Adultery, then it mentions as well about how a harlot or a whore can be purchased for a loaf of bread, but a adulteress will stalk a married man for his entire life. It talks about the ramifications and the fallout. So if you're interested in that, I have that at the very end. So that's where we're at with this guy. He's already been married twice. I would expect that his wife is probably going to divorce him. And now he's stuck with the alimony. And now he goes through the vaunted machinery that is the California so-called justice family law system. That system has its own forms, you check boxes, and then you watch your assets get destroyed, your life get destroyed, your reputation get destroyed, and then you watch what you can do to try to salvage any relationship with your kids before they grow up to hate you. If you're fortunate, the children will see that your mother is lying about you. The problem is that he's got all these allegations and that videotape of him with that woman. Now it gets a lot more difficult to say that you're innocent, that the wife has got this all wrong. So he's got nothing but an uphill battle of misery. So bottom line is that we'll allow him to make his case. We'll allow him to tell us why he's right. I personally don't believe for a second that this is all a surprise to the Democratic Party, because remember, he was allegedly banging Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. And of course, he's on the Intelligence Committee. What kind of name is that? The Intelligence Committee. Anybody that would have a guy who is allegedly sleeping with a Chinese spy that's the only reason why they would have done this, of course. They wanted to offer him a woman to give her access to this information, because she miraculously just flew and disappeared after the story broke. Okay. What are you to make out of that? There's a lot of spying going on by the Chinese on our country, so as to get inside information and trip us up. So this is no surprise to the Democratic Party. It's just now become convenient for them to use it against him. He tried to serve an evil master, and an evil master by definition is evil. And you may please the evil master and feel like you're in its good graces, but the moment that the evil master decides that you no longer are worthwhile, the full brunt and fury of that evil master will come upon you when you disobey it. Catch you on the next one. And you can see the citations, so you can pull them. And here is the parts that you can stop the video and read it.